What's up, everyone? Quick market update. I am going to talk about GME in just a second. I want to talk about a couple other broad market things really fast. Specifically, if we take a look at CPI, it came in pretty light today. So this starts to become interesting as we move forward because the market immediately took this to mean that we are going to be moving into a period of rate cuts. That's exactly what the market shifted today, because you could tell large caps came down, SPX. Then if we take a look at the Russell, that flew off the handle to the upside. It had one of its biggest gaps and days year to date for sure, and in the near term. So the market is starting to pivot a little bit here, and I just think it's important for people to be aware of that. We also saw bonds see a bit of an update here as well. As a lot of folks know, I have kind of positions in a lot of the different indices themselves. Even TLT had a pretty significant gap up here. So from a broader perspective outside of the individual product that I typically talk about on the updates here, I do want to let everybody to know that this is happening and this will trickle down to the sectors, and it offers a ton of trading opportunities. So just for general consumption. Now, let's get back to what most people are more interested in hearing about, which is GameStop. And today, unfortunately, was kind of a quiet day. Actually, the reason why I'm making this video is because I'm trying to maintain the cadence so that we essentially have an archive day by day of what happened in this thing. So what did I notice today? Well, a couple things. The first thing is we did crack 25. There were a lot of people talking about how they felt the algos just wouldn't allow above 25. I honestly don't want to touch that because I can see the perspective that people have with that and the potential manipulation, but I really want to stick to the things that I can decisively prove. And what I can decisively prove here is this is above 25. So it did break above there, which is cool to see. The other thing I notice here is we are still on this ascent. What I mean by that is we're seeing slight drift on each of these days, right? So if we go back to the term low of 1 July, that was where we hovered right on this. What is this? The 50. And we've been slowly drifting back up towards the point of control. And that's kind of where we're hanging out. Now, in terms of volume today, it was light. Not supremely strong volume, but there was a lot more buy volume. As you can see right behind my head there, this was yesterday. And then this is today, obviously. Yesterday was vast majority sale volume. Today, it's almost even split. It's like 50-50. It's 45 buy volume, 55 sale volume. So that is kind of telling to me, again, like I go back to this thing where I feel like even though the vast majority of people that are shorting this stock would love nothing more than to push this way back down to sub 10. And again, I try to talk about things that I can prove. And from a short seller's perspective, that's advantageous to their position. They would want that. So the fact that it's not being pushed down there, even on this really light buy volume, again, is kind of telling to me, it looks like we are building in a little bit of a floor. Now, a floor can fall out at any point for any reason, but the fact that it's been drifting in here tells me that there's at least some semblance of strength in the stock from a price perspective, because otherwise, with such light buying volume, if there was heavy selling, there would be nothing to support it here. But the fact of the matter is that's not happening. So that's been really interesting to keep an eyeball on. Pivoting over now to the options, a couple things. Volume today cratered. Yesterday, this was over 300,000. And today, it's now sub 200,000. So it's back down to a pretty low point. And when I look at where we're seeing most of the volume, again, we're starting to see more exposure to other expiration cycles. I see exposure to the 12 Julys, which is the purple, 19 Julys, which is the blue, and then the 26th July, which is kind of like this pinkish red, whatever this color is. I'm not good with colors, but whatever this is, that one. So we're still very, very centralized in the front expirations, right? That's the next three in the cycle. So if we take a look at the OI by these cycles, and we take a look first at 12 July, there's 157,000 that are coming down tomorrow. There's 325,000 in 19 July, which is pretty massive. And then in 26 July, we're just starting to build out. This is now at 58,000. So again, as per usual, all of the activities in these front two expirations, that is without a doubt. Now, a couple things did stick out to me here. The very first one is going back to volume. If we take a look at this is the 19 July 30s. They're active again. They're very active. We saw activity in these 30s not that long ago, and they're definitely being transacted at again. So if we pop in, there's over 20,000 transactions there. So if we come out here to the 30s, right now the OI was 59,000. Now it's up to 20,500. That's a big, big change. So it's hard to say, right? Because this is really big volume for this, and it's 8 days out. I sometimes do feel like I talk into the wind when I'm trying to help people think about buying options slightly differently. This isn't a terrible trade if you're expecting big upside, but it kind of just feels like people are going back into like the abusive relationship where it's not necessarily changing in the shortest time frame that we might want, and it's taken a little longer. And these people are just getting chewed up. Because here's the deal, 26 Delta is not bad. But take a look at the price of these options. It's essentially 79.5 cents. On a daily basis, they're losing 11 to 12 cents. So let's take a look at that on a percentage basis. 11 cents on something that's 79 cents, 79.5, I guess, 0.795. It is 13.8% of the option premium that's decaying each day. It's just a lot. Again, I have no problem adding kicker options or something where I think that there's going to be some sort of big move, but this is just, it's tough to make money this way. So as you can tell, it always pains me. If we were getting a lot of like really big upside, or if this is a really small subset of people's positions, I would feel differently. But again, I can tell it's not, because if I look at the open interest across these different expirations, it's all in these super short-term options. If I go out here to 16 August, which still isn't that far out, it's 36 days. That's only at 140,000. And I think I've already told you guys, but I'm out here in the 20 September with like 10 other homies. So I have much further expiration exposure, and it's for a bunch of different reasons. I'll link to that same video I've shared a bunch of times so far on how to think about buying call options to try to help some folks. Now, when I look at the disposition of the transactions today, call side was definitely sale heavy, but only by 3 points, right? So 32% transacted at the bid or below. And then on the put side, the vast majority here was buys. So 26% was selling puts, 34% buying puts. So definitely some heavy buying activity on the put side, which obviously would favor the downside a little bit. Another important thing I'm noticing here, take a look at the difference between the call and put OI. We're starting to get very close to one another. Not one-to-one yet, and we still have definitely a call skew, but this is getting tighter and tighter than what it used to be. This used to be easy 2 times, 3 times, 4 times what we saw on the put side. Not so much anymore. Right now we have 900,000 calls to 500,000 puts. So that gap is closing. More people are transacting on the put side. And you can tell another thing that's really interesting in terms of where we're centralized on the put side, it's kind of all over the place, right? So we have the 19 Julys, we have, what is this one? The 17 Jan 25, so people hedging long-term positions, 16 Aug 24s. I don't know what this one is. Let's see. 18 Aug 24. So the point is, these guys are all over the place, where still the vast majority of the OI on the call side is in these shorter term expirations. Again, the 12 Julys, the 19 Julys. There are some spikes that we can see here, like the 16 Augs, as well as this one, which again is the 17 Jan 25s, but those are more the exception than the rule. So the last thing I want to take a look at is from the volume today. We did see, again, a lot of transactions here at the 19 July 24 30s. So I wanted to take a look at them and see what's going on. There are an interesting number of trades, but all of these essentially that transacted on the what I would assume to be the buy side, especially these ones also that are coming in at the mid, like this one, right? It was bid at 71, offered at 75. So they flag it white as in coming in towards the mid, but that's almost certainly a buy. It's right by the offer. So I would assume that these are a purchase. Same thing with these, right? Bid at 72, offered at 75, came in at 74. I would also classify these as a buy. It's much closer to the offer than the bid. So when I look at kind of these series of purchase transactions, this actually isn't a small total position, but I also am not convinced that it's the same person necessarily, because there's kind of enough space between all of these transactions. So all I'm saying is it's inconclusive. You can't tell. It absolutely can be the same person, but this also could be other people. That part is kind of hard to tell from this. Overall, though, some decent size coming into these, right? Like these cumulatively equal a pretty decent size position. So it's something to keep an eye on as we're moving into specifically the 19 July, but you can tell that this is becoming the way more interesting expiration, right? Like a lot of people were betting on some big activity here the 12th of July, and it still may happen, right? Today's the 11th. We could see it on the 12th. Just right now, it's not leaning that way as far as we can tell. So what it's going to look like, at least as far as I can see so far, there are a lot of options with medium OI. It's definitely not heavy OI for GameStop, right? Like as I look at this, the biggest is 16,000, which just isn't that much. And people have been going out to these really far expirations for a while now. We did get a net change, which is actually kind of crazy to me yesterday, of positive 554. This could be locating. That wouldn't surprise me. But at this point, there's also a lot of single transactions in here, which again, to me, looks like a lot of lotto buying and hoping, which is a tough way, again, to make money in markets. So the 12th July is kind of starting to slow down, it looks like, although we still see heavy activity here at the 26s, 14,788 volume against 11,000. So there's people opening positions there. That's definitive. There's no doubt about it. But the question is, do we get a big pull through move tomorrow? So if we look at this from a options pricing as a probability tool standpoint, we can come up with some ideas here. So if we go to this probability analysis, we can see what this might look like for tomorrow, and we can see what the probability of touching some of these different prices are. So if we take a look at the 12th, the probability of touching 2334 is about 16% chance. And then 2777 is about 16. This is a 1 standard deviation cone, by the way. So that's why they're both at 16%, but it just gives you an idea of range. Tomorrow, it's a 16% chance of touching 27, 16% chance of getting down to like 23.5. So not a giant range. Now, the interesting part, though, is that if this does start drifting up towards this 27 handle, these 26s fall in the money. There's some OI, not a ton. So I don't see this serving as some sort of massive gamma ramp, although I absolutely would expect to see some hedging activity coming into expiration if these do fall in the money. So it can get interesting, but this doesn't look like it would be the impetus for a massive, massive squeeze, whether it's a gamma squeeze, short squeeze, either or. I don't really see that being the trigger here. You kind of need like really heavy OI, and especially if it's stacked, right? So in this case, it's light across the entire expiration cycle. So we'll see. Who knows? You never know. That's the fun part with GameStop. It's kind of like watching heavyweights fight. They always have a puncher's chance. So because they have the power to put somebody to sleep, they can lose 5 rounds and then in the 5th round, essentially knock somebody cold. So that could be the case here, but so far it's looking relatively quiet until we see a little bit more of a catalyst. Interesting that price was not pushed down, but we will see how we follow through tomorrow. Obviously, I'm here keeping an eye on it. So any questions, let me know. Be an outlier. See you guys later.